Hello, friends, and welcome back. We are here today to discuss House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 3, The Burning Mill. And I'm here with Jared and Layla. Jared, will you start us off with an introduction, please?
Sure. I'm Jared. I run the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I also am on podcast Speculative Speculations and other fine podcasts like this one on Page Doing. I think I'm echoing now.
And Layla.
I'm Layla Goshi. I am doing a little bit of everything. I teach, but I enjoy writing and editing as well, and reading lots of fantasy and sci-fi. So happy to be here and watching it, of course.
Yeah, watching it too. Of course. We're pretty spoiled, I think, with this series. I don't know. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. And I've seen discussion online. People were saying this one didn't have any turning points or just was sort of a filler. And I don't think so at all. I thought there were some pretty deep and heavy moments in it. But, and maybe it was because of disappointment of the battle being off screen, and like wanting to see that first battle. But overall, I thought it had some great, just every moment is worth a discussion. So very good.
I thought that battle was pretty impactful, even if it happened off screen, because we see the aftermath of it.
Yeah. It took me a minute to realize what was going on, though. So. Sorry, Jared.
Yeah, no, we had the immediate argument between the two sides, and then of course they kind of just skipped right to the battle or the aftermath of the battle, and it was kind of funny because when I was writing my notes, I just had a little notebook in front of me, and I immediately, when they had the argument, I immediately wrote, "What are the consequences?" And then they showed them right away. It was like, oh, right there. So it's kind of amusing. But I liked the viewpoint of seeing the consequences of this rift in the family somewhere else in the world. So I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, I thought, I really did think that was great. And just to stay on it a bit longer, it was interesting that it just started off with bickering kids. And that's why flipping to the scene of the bodies hit me as it did, because I had to stop and think about it for a minute. What exactly am I seeing? But then it dawned, it sinks in and it makes everything that's coming after it a little more deep, because you're thinking, whatever's going on, whatever the two families are saying is being threaded out into the world one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Your term you used, bickering kids, because that's how the whole rift in the actual royal family started, with bickering kids.
That's true. True.
So it's a good parallel there.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think, like Bliv, you mentioned, I think you see the impact that this war has on just everyone. It ripples out, and people that have no say in any decisions that are made are still turning against their neighbors if they aren't on the right side.
Yeah, that's I agree with that too. And not so, and I read it as not just taking sides, but almost feeling like if they don't stand up for their side, it's very, it's very frightening to be considered disloyal. So you'd rather go kill someone else to prove your loyalty. Even when you don't know what's really going on. So it's like having to take a stand somehow just to feel secure, And I think that's where, I think for the kids, it was bravado mostly. But I think by the time it built up into adults, I think there's more psychology behind it, you know.
And I think we see those, are those the same kids we saw in season 1, or the same families?
Oh, it might be. I
don't know.
I think there were 2 kids that were fighting in season 1. I forget the exact episode, but there were 2 kids that were one of them was making fun of the other one, and I think one of them killed the other one. I forget which episode it was in. I'll have to look back, but I'm pretty sure we see the families from this event in season 1.
I didn't think of that, but that would mean that is great continuity for those that noticed, like you, because that is something I like about this particular show. I think that also gives it some depth and a sense of familiarity, which makes us enjoy the show more, instead of just different characters coming up and not feeling like we have any affinity with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we saw Christian Cole in his new role of the Hand, which I don't know about you guys, but it seemed to me he's in a little bit over his head.
Yeah, I think so. And then I also think that Allison's brother, when he came onto the scene, I do think he's aware that there's something going on. But then, Sir Christian Cole did kind of show him up by saving them from the dragons. So, although that doesn't account, or that doesn't take away from everything else that's going on. And I did want him to have a little more embarrassment, at least, over the Erics. Although Allison did call him out. I think she did call him out, but that was about it, and they need all the help they can get. So just having sent someone, a loyal person off to their death, I hope that is a forerunner of things to come for him and his role. Because he needs to realize he's over his head. He needs to get some of that accountability. Or Aegon does.
Yeah. But and I like how the dynamic of the council changed without Otto there.
Great point.
And I found the council session very interesting this time, because it's not as it seems a little more chaotic, and it's a little more at the whim of the king, rather than the king kind of not paying attention or kind of getting shut down a little bit every time he said something. And so this council was a little more, had a more energy to it than previous councils, but it also had a little more chaos to it. And so it was just a different dynamic that I enjoyed.
It was. And did you notice that Allison seemed to be more assertive?
She's trying to be.
She was trying to, but she had more. She was exhibiting more frustration, maybe, and anger, and did tell off Christian Cole. But seemed to back off from really being firm and, overruling anyone. She's not a Cersei.
Yeah, well, not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Yeah, the meeting did have a very different feel without Otto around it. It did feel chaotic, and like no one's kind of steering things. It's kind of just floating out there.
Yeah.
No one's really in charge. No one really knows how to handle the situation. And looking back on it, it's probably the worst time to get rid of Otto in this situation, especially for a young and inexperienced king who he's also easily manipulated too.
Mm-hmm.
But I did wonder, with Cole volunteers to go on this mission, does he want to die? Or does he want to just get out of there? Or both? He doesn't seem very comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he definitely wanted to get out of there. Who knows with these fighting types whether they all have a death wish or not, but yeah, he was definitely not comfortable in his role as the hand. So yeah, getting out of there was probably a good way to clear his head and get away from that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I took his intention to go as just trying to demonstrate his power through action. Like if he sits around there, he's not an advisor. What he's best at is, as the role he's always played, as a guard, as someone ready to fight or defend. And so getting out there and doing something that where he can show his valor or whatever, is probably more attractive. So, yeah. And he did it a bit too. So,
yeah, and he's still young, and he's not. I think he had just enough ambition that being head of the King's Guard is kind of, what he envisioned as something good to go for, ambition wise. And of course, the hand was thrust upon him, and I don't think you can just tell he's not ready for it, and you can tell it's uncomfortable for him in that position. So
yeah, and there's no structure there. If Aegon were predictable, and if he didn't have a relationship with the king's mother, and that's just a strange triangle to be in, whereas if it were a typical board or whatever, where people, act and behave in ways that they're supposed to, he might have a chance to grow into being the hand, but
maybe. I mean, the hand requires a bit of subtlety that seems a little beyond him right now. King's Guard, you take orders, and you're in charge of a select few people, but you take orders and you do your job, and it's a little more straightforward. The hand requires a whole level of complex thinking that I don't think he's there yet. So,
neither are most of them.
Yeah, right. That's not an easy job. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so, but I liked, I like what we know about Cole to this point, that he did come to a good place in his life for a brief time. And that seems to be like yes, he slept with Rhaenyra and got jilted and get all of that. But that's, in a sense, normal, I guess. And I know this sounds strange, but it's normal to have these relationships with mother and friend and all of that stuff. But he, from his early beginnings, he did reach a place of honor, and all the typical stuff that goes on beneath the surface goes on anyway, so that's not like he's doing anything different, I think, in the Game of Thrones world than most of the other folks. I don't know, but so I guess what I'm getting at is he kind of reached that pinnacle but then things are starting to go wrong. And I feel like that's a theme we see once in a while, where someone gets that power, but can't handle that power, or they're thrust into it too soon, either too early or too late, something like that. And I guess that makes sense, since it is really a story about how people handle power.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
So
I think Aegon had the dagger, right? He had. Was it Aegon the Conqueror's dagger? At the meeting he was.
oh
The dagger that he was
yeah,
slamming into the table.
that's a good undercurrent, considering the end of the conversation at the end. So the ghost of Aegon is hovering over this mess,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah.
That dagger will see some use later.
Probably so. That brings up a point. I did read a headline. I didn't get to read the whole article, but it mentioned not seeing that many Valyrian swords.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to. Now, Damon's got one, doesn't he? But I guess the only other Valyrian steel might be that blade that Aegon has. So, yeah. I wonder how. Surely that's got to be used somehow at some point.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hello, my name is Lucy Starbuck Braidley, and I'm here to tell you about Comic Boom, the Comics and Education podcast, sponsored by ALCS. Comic Boom is a podcast dedicated to exploring comics and graphic novels and the role they play in education. Each episode features a guest from a wide range of backgrounds, including comics creators, illustrators, writers, and academics. And importantly, I talk to teachers and librarians who are using comics in their classroom to engage young people, from their first days of school right up to graduate level. So if you're into children's literature, comics, education, or illustration, then there's sure to be something that will spark your interest in Comic Boom. Find it on comicboom.co.uk or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, and Damon walks in and just says, "Harrenhal's mine."
Yeah.
And the guy, whoever was there, was like, "Yep, here you go." He just bows down.
I guess what are you going to? I mean, he has no one to protect him, or it's just kind of like, well, you want some dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
no, I like that scene as well. The guy saw the inevitable, and
its name is Dragon.
And the dragon. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. But Damon is having some visions in Harrenhal. That's what we were talking about before we started recording. I thought his vision of young Rhaenyra was very stunning and seemed to spook him, especially since she was sewing up the neck of young Aegon the heir. So, and I do think that's a kind of a sign that Rhaenyra was going to try to resolve things with Allison. Of course, he doesn't know that, but he's feeling the undercurrent of it. Because that happened right about the same time. That happened before we saw her conversation with Allison. But
Yeah. But what do you think what do you think he's going to do there now that he has Harrenhal? Is he going to? I mean, I imagine he's there also to muster troops or something like that from the countryside. And he's holding it because somebody said earlier in an earlier episode that if you hold Harrenhal, then you can take the Riverlands or what have you. But I wonder how long he's going to be there, and how long he's going to be out of Rhaenyra's hair, causing trouble. And is that just a placeholder for him, or is he going to go against the grain? He's going to come back. He's going to do something crazy.
Well, I'm really wondering. It seems like way early for he and Aemond to have their battle, over the God's Eye. But it seemed like Aemond was, I got the impression that Aemond, like Cole and the others, are traveling to Harrenhal, and they were telling the king, Aegon, no, you shouldn't go, and so on. And Aemon had that look in his eye like he was going to go. I can't remember if he verbally said he was or not. So it seems like they're building up to the showdown between, Daemon and Aemond, but I hope it comes later, because that's like a huge moment in the book, So,
Do they?
yeah, but
Do we know how many seasons this will be at?
Yeah, how far into the book is that?
Well, what they said, what the conversation was, in regard to show, I think he told Rhaenyra, like, there were 1,000 men near Harrenhal, so maybe his overt reason for being there is to gather those men. I seem to recall that conversation, but yeah, I don't know how far in the book that is.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's 4 seasons. It's planned for 4 seasons.
Oh, okay.
We're in the second. Okay.
Well, lots can happen between now and then. Yeah. So Rhaenyra sends her kids away, expecting trouble at any time with all this, with the advent of the assassination attempt. What else happened in that scene too? That there was some other discussion there with
the daughter. Did not want to go.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the Valyrian daughters did not want to go.
Right, but she's sending them to Valyria, right? Is that correct?
To Pentos, I thought.
Pentos, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Which is a pretty important task she's carrying their legacy. I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
It is an important task, but she was very disappointed because I guess she doesn't have a dragon. So that's not Bela. That is
Rhaenyra.
Oh,
Rhaena?
That's right.
Sorry, Rhaena.
Right. But I'd like to see more of her story. I just feel like that's ripe for some adventure too. And didn't they pack up three dragon eggs?
I think it was.
Did I see that?
4? Was it 4 or 3?
Dragon eggs, yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah, that makes you wonder too. Yeah.
Well, it'd be great if one hatched for her or something. I have no idea if it will, but since that was played up so much in the scene that she had to leave, she was stuck with the kids, so to speak, because she didn't have a dragon and wasn't as important to the battle as her sister.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty cool. I hope that comes more into play later. The what happens with those eggs. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. That's very interesting. Yeah, I really hope that comes to fruition. I liked the use of religion in this episode.
Mhm.
We got to see a little bit more. Because we don't really see that much in these series. And I like how they emphasize the name of the stranger, which is kind of like the death god or whatever in this mythos, and that was brought up quite a bit. And then of course the whole ceremony that Allison had when she's lighting all the candles and stuff like that, and that was the means of Rhaenyra getting in and trying to talk to her, trying to work things out. And once again, we see another infiltration of the enemy's encampment by a fairly simple method, right? This is like a running theme going on every episode now, that somebody's infiltrating somewhere. And you wonder when the security is going to get beefed up in these cases. I mean, Rhaenyra took the caution of sending her kids away, but then now, and the king now names a master of whisperers, with that I forget that character's name.
The
guy with the cane.
Is it? I'll find it. There's a lot of characters.
Yeah, but so it looks like they're attempting to, make their security a little better, but still, she did manage to infiltrate the King's Landing without too much difficulty.
That does kind of show. I mean, if it weren't for the hair, the silver hair, the small folk don't really know what their rulers, what the nobility look like on a day-to-day basis, So all she needed was a Septa's clothing, and she could just walk freely through the city. I thought it was really... that says a lot about how interactive they are with the small folk.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if that was the same during the Game of Thrones series, was because it's 300 years or so, something like that. Game of Thrones takes place 300 years later. Was the security better in Game of Thrones than it is during this time of the House of the Dragon? And I kind of want to go back and look and see if there was that same lack of security, or if it was more beefed up when you had people like Varys and Littlefinger constantly watching out and constantly on guard against stuff. And I'm wondering if this very lack of security during this time is what led to that increase paranoia about people getting in, or people attempting assassination, or whatever, And I'm wondering if they're playing that up on purpose, just because of that future intrigue,
I think that's a great point, because right now the whispers are not valued the same way, and even seen as kind of a threat. Like, I'm talking more about Daemon's former paramour, and she's actually had to leave the city and was seen more. Now, she was against the family, and
Mysaria.
Mysaria, yeah, where she was very talented as a whisperer and should have been brought into the fold. So I do wonder if you have a point there. I do think you have a point there about that, because 300 years later, they definitely recognize their value, and they have people, they have eyes across the city. So, and I think, one thing I thought of was, so Cersei was Cersei. I'm not sure if the small folk knew her, but remember when, was it not the High Towers? The, Joffrey's bride, not Sansa, but Joffrey's bride, how she went out into the city to visit the orphans. And so there would seem to be more security there, seen as more of an issue. So I think it is showing from here how everything was like in its nascent form.
Right. That's good. It's a good term. Yeah.
And the people who knew the most were probably people in the brothels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which pretty much remain the same, I think, later.
Yeah. That's why Littlefinger owns so many.
I'm waiting to see a bowl of brown, to be honest. I want to see if that comes up somewhere, unless I've missed it.
The character was Larys, the Lord Larys was the Master of Whispers now, officially.
Yeah, and the king said something that, my father didn't have one, but he his grandfather might have had one, and he wanted to bring that tradition back or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy Larys, he's kind of putting his hooks into the king now. He's kind of he knows how to play him a little bit, and so we're seeing the beginnings of that. I wonder how much he's going to influence this king now.
Yeah, he'll be the unstated hand, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have more of the diplomatic skills than Cole.
Mm-hmm.
It was Marjorie Tyrell was the
Marjorie Tyrell. That's right.
Names.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think. Go ahead.
Sorry. So Rhaenyra sends the 3 eggs and the 3 sons. Are those the 3 eggs we see later in the timeline?
That's a good question.
I think we're meant to think that,
At the very least, yeah, right?
Right. And it's like a heartwarming callback and oh yeah. So, but yeah, I'll leave it there. I had a book question. I had a book point to make, but they could have slightly deviated, and that's okay. I think it's getting the eggs over there. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one more point about Larys Strong. I think, the next layer of all that's going on is everyone's playing their role, but there is then who's really holding the power and who's really using the power. And, so because I think Otto really was he was playing part of the kingly role in a sense. I mean, because he would guide those decisions. I think Larys will be playing the role of the hand of the king, but also deeply influencing the king. So just talking again about who's holding power and how it's being used. It's like the titles, the people, whatever they claim they're there for, isn't necessarily related to the actual power they hold.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference is that Larys, I don't think, wants to be known that he is influencing the king.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he wants anything to do with that. That somebody would actually know that he's influencing the king. Whereas Otto would have had no problem with it because he's older, he's wiser, he's more experienced, and it was quite obvious that he was trying to influence the king and make the king make a better decision. Whereas I don't think Larys ever wants to be seen as somebody in a position who's actually influencing the king at all. And that's the difference between them, I believe.
What do you think his real goal is? What is Larys actually trying to accomplish?
It's a good question.
He sold out his brother, essentially, or his family. And I know his family did not treat him well either, from what I remember. So, and then he had a thing with Allison, right? The toe thing. So I wonder if he and Cole have any kind of rivalry, or I'm just trying to get at what exactly is his goal in being there other than just being at the center of the action,
Yeah. It's a good question.
It's his way of being, it's his way of finding safety, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, that was a question about Varys in the Game of Thrones too.
Yeah.
Like you always kind of wonder what's his end game, what's his goal, and and it turns out that in Game of Thrones, you kind of had the sense that he was really actually doing this for the sake of the realm.
Yeah.
He had his means and ways that everybody might not have agreed with, but you kind of got that sense. And so I wonder if they're going to play up Larys in a similar manner, or if they're going to diverge from that and reveal some other kind of goal for him.
It would be interesting because, from a Game of Thrones book series perspective, we don't know what's happened to Varys yet. And from the show, it was kind of a Varys end, but if he's really doing something for the good of the realm, there's two ways of looking at it with a character like that. Either he's a martyr because he was working for the realm the whole time, and the realm ended up killing him. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Varys, or there's something else planned for him in the books. And I wonder. So watching how they treat Larys, it does make me wonder, how that works. And notice how Rhaenyra was smart enough to, to take on, what's her name again? The other whisperer.
The White Worm?
Yeah, the White Worm.
Mysaria.
Yeah.
A lot of names.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But Mysaria is working for herself. She's not necessarily working for the realm.
Mm-hmm. She definitely has a more obvious goal in mind. So survival being one of them, and not getting just killed by a royal just for being who she was in the first place, and so that's a bit more obvious that her goal is definitely going to be survival, and maybe that'll grow into something else as time goes on. Mm-hmm. But for now, that's where she's at, and she's going to be using all her skills in any possible way to stay that way. And whereas I don't think Varys has to worry too much about survival at this point. Mm-hmm. So his game's a little more subtle and a little more. He can't make a wrong step, but he can also just back off and not do much if he wanted to. But he obviously has something in mind to do more.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good character for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like the meeting at the end with Rhaenyra and Allison seemed a little clunky. Like it seemed a little bit too easy to get to her, and I think it demonstrates how it seems like Rhaenyra was holding off on attacking because she still has a soft spot for Allison. She's hoping to avoid conflict, and we do get did Allison mishear who should be the next ruler? Is it, or is there miscommunication there?
I felt like Allison did realize that, maybe he was talking about a story, but it's too late now. She can't go back now. But I think they let the audience see that there's that next layer now with Allison. Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I actually, I wrote that down. It's too late. Sorry.
Yeah.
He could have said something, last year or whatever it was. But that was what's she gonna do? Like all of a sudden walk up to the council and say, everything, son, you have to go sit over there. You're not king anymore. So nobody's gonna go for that. And so she's not going to admit even to herself or Rhaenyra that could have been a mistake. I mean, that's just that's a road she can't go down.
Yeah, so it's that's really going to heighten the emotional tension and drama for both of them, because Rhaenyra will, she'll know that Allison knows that it's all BS. The whole thing that they're going through is BS, but they're going through it. But now they have to follow the tracks that they're on. They don't have to follow the tracks that they're on, but Allison feels that she does. And do you think that she would feel under threat if she tried to, say something, or would it just,
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen anything to dissuade us that she would not be, if not put away, then possibly killed if she were to go against her own son on a throne.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Could have avoided a lot of death and a lot of misery. It seems like the small folk are the ones who are going to pay for it, like they always do in wars and conflicts. So it's just pretty sad to see it go that way. But this is Game of Thrones, or Song of Ice and Fire, so,
Yeah. I just had this thought that I remember back in season 1, there was some discussion around how Helena never felt comfortable around Allison. Do you all remember that? That through her mannerism, Helena did not relate well with Allison. I'll have to try to go back and look at that. And so at the time, I was talking to somebody and we were saying, well, maybe she sees, that Allison maybe not sees this exactly, but gets that vibe that Allison will cause a lot of problems in life. Because technically what Allison did lead to the death of Helena's son.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll look that up next time. But I remember some conversations around that, because it seemed that Allison never wanted to directly engage. I mean, Helena never wanted to directly engage with Allison, and that she was most comfortable around Aemond. Yeah.
So many details. It's hard to remember what happened a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And Helena is who was she related to before she married the king?
She's the king's sister. So she.
Oh, she is, okay.
Yeah.
And was she?
Daughter, yeah.
All right. And his who's so Helena is also the daughter of Allison as well?
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to get them all straight.
So.
All right, so they're both all right, so okay. Targaryen fashion. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this she was a sister wife to King Aegon II. She was
Yeah.
the only daughter of King Viserys I Targaryen by a second wife,
Allison. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In true Targaryen fashion.
Yeah. So I see her. Well, she's one of my favorite characters anyway, just because of the way she is. But I see her having a role to play still. I'd like to see more between her and Allison, her mother, just because of what we knew before, and it seems like they've gotten closer after the death of the heir, but I'm not sure if that runs both ways or if it's just Allison is being more protective.
Hmm.
One other thing, speaking of mothers and protection, so then there's Aemond, who keeps going back to the same prostitute in the brothel. And he gets called out and humiliated about that by Aegon. So, what's going on there with that? Do you think he's,
Yeah.
it's an emotional thing, or
maybe like a mother figure or like someone to comfort him?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem
in general?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Just someone to confide in and to who he thinks cares for him, because I don't think he really gets a whole lot of comfort anywhere else. He's kind of the second in line. He's kind of in limbo.
Right.
Yeah. And that was the king going out in the town, right? He was kind of going out with his cronies, right?
His guards,
and, having a good time.
I mean, how risky? Even though he's with his guards.
Yeah.
Again,
Well, somebody mentioned that they're exposed.
Mhm.
Somebody told him that, they said we're exposed, and I can't remember who said it, but so they were trying to warn him off of it. Somebody was, and of course he wasn't having any of that. But and I think just making fun of Aemond was icing on the cake for his night out there. But
right. But that may set Aemond off to be violent.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be violent against the king, but I wonder if he's going. There's nobody there except poor Helena, maybe Allison.
Yeah.
But Cole's gone, so yeah, there's just something about that seems strange. But yeah, coming back to the other point too. So the king is exposed. So is Aemond, running around somewhere with no clothes on. Helena, we hope, is safe. And Rhaenyra has pulled a knife on Allison, and then the other guys are riding across an open field, with dragons flying around. So it really does seem just like total risk and chaos and lack of awareness, which makes the story so good, and how they're really not caring for what Aegon I fought for.
Yeah, that's a good point, because they seem to be, they still seem to be in this mindset that they can just walk around and do whatever they want, because that's how they were raised. That's how they started. And they haven't yet grasped onto the fact that they got to take more care of where they're going, their surroundings and all that stuff, because things are going to happen now. And it's, because that's, once Aegon, the original conqueror, conquered this, there wasn't any question of who was in charge and who the king was, and he had the power and he had the backing, and so there wasn't the intrigue that's happening now was the intrigue we were introduced to in a Game of Thrones show. But that was like right off the bat, so everybody was on guard right away. And I think they're not there yet in this show. They're just not to that level of guardedness, and it's pretty cool how they're laying that out for us and showing us that aspect of that society.
And let's take that even further, because what they really need to be doing is training to be on guard from the threat in the north, which is why Aegon decided to pull, the kingdoms together in the first place. And the story was supposed to pass down to the next Targaryen ruler, which would have been Rhaenyra. But this is where the story gets lost, so it weakens them even more. So I would even say I don't even blame Allison for that. I blame Rhaenyra's father and maybe Aegon, because maybe a few more people needed to know besides just one ruler who could be assassinated or something, and then it would leave the realm open to whatever's coming, just like what has happened now. And so the opposite has actually happened, where they're just exposed.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the title, A Song of Ice and Fire. That's the tale. And that's a great point. Yeah, that's it. The fact that their father, his name was Aegon too, or no?
Viserys.
Viserys, yeah. The fact that he held on to that so long that he had to kind of blather it out as mumblings on his deathbed, rather than being clear about it and being, this is our mandate right here. This Song of Ice and Fire. It's our mandate. He wasn't clear about it. He waited until his last dying breaths in order to just whisper it to Rhaenyra, and that's part of the hubris and part of the what's going wrong in this scenario.
And there's also this issue of Allison, not respecting his wives enough to also tell them whether, I don't know if he told his first wife, but he should have told Allison as the mother. Now, he thought Rhaenyra was going to be the ruler. He did. So that's why he didn't have a long talk with Allison somewhere at some time. But it still just seems that lack of respect for the spouse, and really she's living a whole different universe, not even aware of what the primary role of the rulers is supposed to be, which is to defend the realm. And something else I thought of, trying to think of the older, Rhaenyra's oldest son, who goes out to see the Starks. And so he's upholding that partnership. They're upholding that partnership, but they don't even realize why they really have that partnership, And I'm wondering if the Starks know. So I wonder if they'll bring that up at some point.
Yeah, but he was upholding that partnership more to get troops out of Starks, or a promise out of the Starks to fight on their side, rather than for the mandate of protecting the realm from the north. And so that it definitely was not passed down in a proper manner, I guess you could say proper. But and as far as telling Allison, I could see him holding it back from her, because she was kind of she's the second wife. She was kind of set up. It was all just a arranged type thing in order to make a political marriage and stuff like that. His first wife seemed to be his actual, the one he actually really cared about originally. And if anything, he would have told her maybe, but she died, way too soon. But he definitely screwed up by waiting until it was whispered on his deathbed to reveal that information.
Yeah. And come to think of it, then they were actually pulling fighting men away from the wall, again, weakening the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just it just shows, it's a good story, and it just shows how things can go wrong, and, the important things not being paid attention to while all of this other skullduggery happens.
It's classic. It's classic,
It is great.
Martin. It's the egos take forefront, first and foremost, and so it makes it's great drama.
It really is.
Yeah.
Any other notes from this one?
Not from this one. Like I started with, I think, because I read like the Reddit boards and all these different things and run across things. But, I did see conversations about, well, not much happened here. And I really think that we're going to look back on this as being maybe filled with some more Easter eggs, as they say, than we're realizing at the moment. So, but I'm going to go back and try to find that scene with Helena and Allison from the first season and just see if there's any connections there to what's going on now in Allison's role. Maybe if I get time watching it again.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this episode filler at all. I would say it's actually there's a lot tying into other various, like you said, some stuff for the first season, but there's just a lot of tie-in to the previous episodes, and I guarantee you there's a lot of stuff tied into what's going to come next.
Yeah.
I thought it was full. I thought this episode was. I didn't see it as filler at all. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that. Yeah.
Maybe it's more that folks want to see the action, and this episode was about maneuvering and more people's either psychological issues or visions. And the revelation about, Allison's mishearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big
plenty
one.
of drama, though. There's plenty of drama. So
it's a big one.
It was good.
That's actually the turning point of the entire, universe, is Allison's misunderstanding. Yeah, so
it's pretty key.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
pretty big. Well, cool. Anything else you guys can think of?
Not right now.
Good episode.
It was.
Another good one. Yeah. But until next week, Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and on plenty of podcasts on pagechewing.com, including Speculative Speculations, which is fun.
Yes.
Check it out.
And Layla?
About the same in terms of I've been on a couple of other podcasts. Recently discussed Lord and King.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, P.L. Stewart's book. And so doing things like that, working on my magazine a little, and I guess just watching House of the Dragon. That's right.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. So I guess until next week, we'll see everyone very soon.